Hello there, my friends. This is Eileen Fernandez Parker coming to you through Dell and ALP. And in this video, I want to introduce to you our module for Blended Learning 102, which is going to cover building community and empowerment. And this is going to be an overview because you'll be able to dig in using the activities that are set up for you later on in this module. All right. So what we're going to be discussing is, does your classroom culture support community and student empowerment? So let's get started. You might be familiar with this saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you're not familiar with it, what it means is you can plan all day long, but if you don't have the right culture to get the job done for everybody to work together, your strategy is just going to flop. Okay? So, what I'm going to be sharing with you are some ideas for how you can build community, build a really strong culture in your classroom so that students feel empowered to make decisions on their own. They feel independent enough to know what they're supposed to be doing. If you're doing blended learning, if you're doing station rotation, if you're having them do independent work, so you can work with a small group, culture is going to be super important. It could make or break you. All right, so we are going to be focusing on two things: belonging and empowerment. All right, both of these things need culture and build culture. So it's kind of a chicken and egg scenario. Um, the culture helps kids to belong, to feel like they belong, but then it also helps to empower them. That as they become more empowered, it makes your culture stronger. So it's hard to say that it's just one thing because it ends up being more like a mesh system where, if you have a weak link, that's where things start to fall apart. So it can be complex, but there are simple ways that you can just begin the process. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about are strategies to increase belonging in school and strategies to increase empowerment. So why is belonging important? This is a quote from John Hattie. If you're not familiar with him, he is a researcher out of Australia, and his research is called visible learning. And his quote is, "It is incumbent, therefore, upon schools to attend to student friendships to ensure that the class makes newcomers welcomed, and at minimum to ensure that all students have a sense of belonging." We are seeing that too many of our students are disenfranchised, right? They don't feel a connection to school. And in building culture in our classrooms, we can help students to feel like they are a part of our school family. Okay? So, the pros of strong community and sense of belonging. And this is research based. Increased engagement. When you have students who are putting their heads down or not paying attention or are on their phones or doing something else, they're not engaged. And when there is a sense of belonging, kids are more engaged. There's also greater academic motivation because the kids they're invested in what's going on in the classroom, right? They feel like they're a part of the family, and so what happens is important to them. There are also better mental health outcomes, and we're seeing an increase in mental health issues that have devastating effects on the person and the people around them. So, if we could save just one person, it would all be worth it. So, the cons of lack of community and belonging, what we see is that there are higher rates of violence, higher rates of absenteeism, and higher rates of depression. So if you're seeing those things at your school, then building community could be something to consider. So let's talk about empowerment now. Why is empowerment important? When kids are empowered, they have a degree of autonomy and control in their day-to-day activities. They also have a voice in daily processes. They have ownership in the work that they do, the rules that exist, and the processes that are around them. They feel like they're valued and appreciated, and there's increased engagement, enjoyment, and success. And you might be shocked to know that this list is actually from business, because businesses are learning that when they empower their employees to do all of these things, they stay longer, right? They don't leave the company, they work harder, and they get better results. So it's time for us to actually look to business, right? And say, maybe it's human nature. Maybe we need for our kids to be empowered, and we need to give them a voice in all of these things. So here we are with student empowerment. And this is one definition. Student empowerment is where students gain the authority and agency. So student agency is sometimes a synonym for student empowerment. And they have the power, basically the authority, to make decisions on their own and to implement changes in their school. Student empowerment generally includes learning, teaching, and leadership in the classroom. And it's not just the kids who typically would be your National Honor Society, president and vice president. It's everybody. Every student is empowered to make decisions and to be a leader in some way, shape, or form. Empowerment happens through student authorization and action upon gaining a sense of power. So it's being given the authority to think on your feet, to make a decision, and then to act on it. In businesses, the companies that are known for doing this have the best customer service, because the employee doesn't have to run to a manager or go up the chain to figure out, what can I be doing for this customer? And it trickles down and it works just as well in the classroom. All right, so this is a list of 14 ways that you can make your employees feel empowered. And so I just crossed out employees because think about it for your students. So here we go. And as I show them to you, I want you to look down at the bottom. It says, which of these could you co-design with your students? And that is super important, because it's in the co-design that you give students a voice. So think of it as if you were going to go on a family vacation, right? You would want to know what your kids really want to do, because if you don't discuss it with them, they could conceivably ruin the vacation, right? So you talk to them, you find out what their needs are, what their likes are, what their interests are, and in thinking about that, let's look at this list. So let the students in on your vision. So what is your vision for the classroom? And could you co-design that with your students? Should they have a say in what the vision is? Clearly define your expectations and boundaries. After probably starting in kindergarten, students know right from wrong, and they can tell you what the rules of the classroom should be. And what we have found is that when the students say it, the other students listen more. So if you guide the students to come up with a really powerful behavior list, things we want to see, you might see a lot more attention to it from the other students. Take time giving feedback. All too often, we get wrapped up in everything that we have to do. And before we know it, we've finished a unit and we've moved on to the next, and we haven't given feedback and we haven't reflected. So, giving feedback can be daily, and it doesn't always have to come from the teacher. The students can give one another feedback too. And there are tools that we'll build upon in this module and in other modules so that you have the tools that you need to be able to do that. Reward hard work, right? This originally was for employees. Employees will work harder if you say thank you and if you reward them. And external rewards work, right? We work for money, but we also work for a thank you. And I can tell you that I know with my own children, they would walk on hot coals for teachers and coaches that they knew liked them and that they liked. So rewarding their hard work sometimes just needs to be a thank you and an acknowledgement. Delegate to demonstrate trust. So you don't have to do everything. The kids can do it too. They just need to be trained. And so as you delegate work to them, you are letting them know that you trust them. Give them permission to act. So if a device is broken, do they need to come to you, or can you have a flowchart on the wall that tells them what to do that they can follow? Or can it be somebody's job in the classroom that builds pride in them because they've been given this responsibility, this great, awesome responsibility of caring for the devices? And not only are you helping them to grow, but they're going to be getting some tech skills in the process. So be there for them, right? If the kids walk in, they're having a bad day, stop. Talk to them, you know? Take the time to let them know you care. And you might have to say, okay, we can't take the whole period up for this, but let's set a timer and let's spend 5 minutes and talk about, what's going on. Don't shy away from small talk. If there's a kid in your class who comes in early, don't ignore him, right? Have a little chat. Do some small talk. Ask him how he is. How's his family? What are you doing? What'd you do this weekend, right? You'd be surprised how much the kids appreciate that. Promote individual improvement. So I always think about track when I think about this, because track is really good at talking about personal best. And you just want to beat your own time, right? And so with goal setting, and yoga is like this too, right? Don't look around, just think, where were you yesterday? Where are you trying to be today? And then focus on yourself. And those are some things that we don't maybe do enough of in classrooms. So maybe start talking about setting personal goals and then just looking at personal growth. Acknowledge mistakes and move on quickly. You don't have to harp on it, right? And when you acknowledge mistakes, it doesn't mean just the kids' mistakes, right? It means our mistakes as teachers. Oh, I screwed up. Oh, I got it wrong. Oh, I forgot, Kids respect teachers who are honest about what they do. Allow the kids to think for themselves. Don't always tell them what to think, right? Let them have discussions. Think about what they are thinking and move on. Set goals that are irresistible to meet. So this could be a reward system, right? But try to make those goals really irresistible so the kids want to achieve. And let the kids lead. They really are wonderful. They are wonderful at leading. And it is only in leading that you trip and you get yourself back up. And so if we let them lead in the classroom, they'll be much better leaders when we set them out on the world. deserve their trust. So this is all about us, right? Do we deserve their trust, or do we just have their compliance? Because it's not the same thing. So these are the things that we can do to help our students feel empowered. Now, how can we increase belonging and empowerment? We're going to be talking about learner profiles. We won't cover all of these things, but these are some things that you can do in your classroom, or you can research, look more deeply into. So learner profiles, goal setting, classroom vision, classroom code or a contract, some people call them, group norms, celebrations, acknowledgments, community meetings, sentence stems, clear and co-designed routines and expectations. Sometimes they're called SOPs for standard operating procedures. Growth mindset is super important in our students. Choice, giving them some choice in their work environment. Do they want to work in groups, or would they rather work alone? Do they want to work in the beanbag, or are they better off in a hard chair with a desk in front of them? Let them choose the activities they're going to do. That doesn't mean it's a free for all. It means you're giving them three choices. You've already thought it out, and they can choose which activities they want to do. Or they might all have to do the same activities, but they get to pick the order that they do them in. That is super empowering. The kids have some choice. They are being forced to make a choice, to decide. And this is something that we don't do enough of. And what I'm finding is that students are leaving us, going away to college, and they're not able to handle it because there are so many decisions, and they've not really had the opportunity to tackle something that is complex. And so we're doing them a disservice by not letting them have more decisions. Self-evaluation is super important. It's how we are honest with ourselves about what's going on. And then timely peer and teacher feedback. And timely is the key word, right? Because feedback can only help us, helps us most when it's a formative assessment. In a summative assessment, the feedback is almost wasted because the student doesn't have another opportunity to improve. Okay? So now, who benefits if we really focus on the culture in our classroom and empowering our students and developing student agency? Who benefits? So let's just think about the teacher with increased connectivity, increased trust in students, and increased opportunity to meet with small groups. Kids learn better in small groups. And if you build that empowerment with your students, you are going to be able to trust them to be doing what they are supposed to be doing while you are working with a small group. If you can't trust them, then my advice to you is focus more on the culture in your classroom, right? And are you empowering them? And with empowerment, you have to train them. So taking the time to train them, go slow to go fast is a great saying because it takes time to train them, but then you're off and running. And you're going to have increased opportunity for blended learning, which is why we're covering this in the first place. Okay, now for the student himself or herself that is empowered and feels like they belong, they feel better, right? They're happier. So there's increased belonging for that student, increased dependence and confidence, increased engagement, increased success, and the development of 21st century skills. So we are prepping them for success in school and success after school. So as individual students feel this, it becomes a community benefit because there is increased collaboration, increased community, increased belonging, and 21st century skills are being developed. So in the next few activities, you are going to be digging in to learn more about all of what I covered here. And again, this was just an overview. So We have a lot to cover, so I'll see you in the next module.